Welcome back to the channel. Now, this is something we've wanted to show you for a little while. Today, it's finally time to show you the Jensen Interceptor that we've been kind of sneak peeking in the back of a few of our videos. What exactly is this? It's a Jensen Interceptor Series III. So whilst this may look like a standard Jensen Interceptor, this car's actually pretty bespoke. So what we're going to do in this video is give you a tour around all of the different things that we've done and explain what the goal for this car is. The obvious place to start with this car is the engine bay. So in here we have the original 383 cubic inch V8, bored and straight to 7 litre. We've got a Holley Terminator throttle body that comes with a whole host of sensors, looks like an old carburettor, bolts on it in exactly the same way, but gives you 4 fuel injectors, idle control valve, intake air temperature sensor, a lot of the things that you need to run custom EFI from an aftermarket ECU in one neat package basically. It sits under here, you can't even really see it. This is a Cobra oval air cleaner, Cobra style. It fitted with the aesthetic of the cast aluminium rocker covers with the ribs. All we've done is take the Cobra logo off and we're going to have our own logo machined into the top. So externally, we've made a number of changes to this Jensen, and most visually striking is probably the daytime running lights. These were one of my great ideas. I do this quite a lot to myself. I will come up with an idea and I'll say to my client, how about this? And occasionally they go, yeah, I like that. And then I have to go away and have to figure out how to do it. So there are a number of 5 3/4 inch headlight options available for these cars off the shelf. And there are also a number of headlights out there that have daytime running lights, halos, that sort of thing. But there was nothing out there that had this kind of clean aesthetic that I was after. One of the things I wanted a clear lens, because it's much more modern, with the reflector pattern on the back. And then I wanted a white halo ring that would change to orange to function as the indicator. All of this has enabled us to delete what normally sits here, which is the standard side light and indicator pods for a much cleaner look on the front end of the car. These were a mission to source something that would actually fit in there, but everybody seems to love them who's seen them so far, and I'm quite proud of them actually. Other changes at the front of the car here, we've removed every other slat from the front grille and respaced it. Obviously the bumpers would originally have been chrome, they're now blacked, and the surrounds here would originally have had this front edge sanded to be smooth aluminium or bare aluminium. We've not bothered with that because we like the blacked out look. These cars, as standard, I always feel that look a bit gormless, like they've got a bit of an underbite, and to make it kind of more muscly, we didn't want to start adding lip spoilers or anything because it kind of makes it a little bit less classy. But what we did is we cut the front end off basically, we cut its chin off, messed around with the height until it looked right. And in terms of this car, what looked right was an extra 40mm of metal all the way through the front of the car just to drop this front valence. Gives it kind of more a beefier look. So very pleased with how that came out as well. So another exterior change we made was, if you've ever seen one of these later model Jensens, this is the design of side wing vent that they have. And quite frankly, they don't fucking fit. They're an absolute mess. The radius is completely off in the corner in comparison to the vent itself. There's a horrible gap all the way around, and they look like an afterthought, especially on these remanufactured panels, which are not very faithful to the original shape anyway. So what we did here is we made new holes. We cut out the original vent aperture, made a new one that profiled nicely to the vent, and this is a standard size vent in terms of the exterior shape of it, and welded it back in so we get a much nicer fit. Looks like it's supposed to be there. Other things we've done here, initially we removed every 2 slats to give it a cleaner look, similar to the front grille. The customer saw it and he said, oh, I like that. He said, my Aston Martin has pressed stainless steel vents. Can you do that? So yes, I said, of course I can do that. And then I had to work out how to do that. But the result, I think, speaks for itself. These are painted in the same E-type opalescent gunmetal grey as the rest of the car. And they also function as the side repeater. The whole thing lights up bright orange in kind of a stealthy way. So these wheels, they are the only set in the world. There was a wheel style from a UK manufacturer which the owner had in his mind that he wanted for the car. These are the wheels I want. I want them all satin black. I want them to be 17 inch. And as much as I tried to make him deviate from some of those decisions, he wasn't budging, and I have to admit he was correct because I think they're perfect. However, the manufacturer who produced a similar style of wheel couldn't accommodate us. enter Rimscarnated. Rimscarnated drew up and built these wheels for us. A little bit of a challenge to make because we've got some massive brakes. Obviously with 500 foot-pounds of torque and 450 horsepower, you need to be able to stop a Jensen Interceptor, which is a relatively heavy car. And these were built for us by HiSpec down in Kent. And again, I think this is the only set of these brakes in the world. It's got an electronic handbrake on the back, which is automatically controlled by a nice little ECU unit that HiSpec supply. We've got 6 piston calipers on the front and 4 piston calipers on the rear. Not too sure on the disc diameter, but they're fairly meaty and they should do the job nicely. Hello, and welcome to the boot. So at first mention, a boot is not the most interesting area of a car to show you, but there's a lot going on in here, so come on in. Revel in the luxurious diamond stitch. This is just a sample of what some of the interior is going to look like. Anyway, lots going on in here. We've got the fuel tank poking through the top here. It's a completely custom aluminium fuel tank, modified slightly so the exhaust can fit around it. It's got an aeromotive hanger. It's all fully baffled and sumped with a drain on the bottom in case we really need to take the fuel out. So here we have a nice little Pioneer active sub. The owner tells me that he mainly listens to Radio 4 when he's driving, and he really wanted some way of accentuating the deep and dulcet tones of Brian Blessed while he's driving. That should do the trick. Here we've got the HiSpec handbrake controller. Here we've got one of the Motec PDMs. Now, a Motec PDM is an awesome bit of kit. Other brands are available, but we've gone with Motec. A PDM essentially replaces all of the fuses, relays, and cuts down a ton of wiring that we would have had to put in this car if we hadn't gone with this modern solution. As you can see, it's tiny. All you do is you give it battery power into there, and then you tell it to switch things on and off for you. So in this case, we've got 2 in the car. We've got one there. We'll show you the other one in a sec. This one at the back does the fuel pump power, fuel solenoid, the release of the fuel flap, does all the rear lights, provides power to the handbrake, provides power to the active sub, interior lighting, boot light, that sort of thing. It's all going to be hidden behind a nice trimmed up panel in the back there. So continuing on from the boot, we have a whole host of electronic wizardry to show you. Now, as I mentioned, this car has no fuses, relays, anything like that, and there's one of the PDMs is in the boot. The other PDM sits under here. It's a Motec PDM 30, so it's a little bit bigger than the PDM 15. That's going to power our Motec ECU, which is tucked down here. So from basically here forwards, all the power distribution is done from under the center console, which is pretty cool. Something that I've recently been experimenting with on this car, being a largely bespoke build, a lot of the original switchgear is not going to be used. In fact, I think the only piece of original switchgear on the car is going to be the actual mechanism behind the heater controls, because it's all vacuum controlled, and the ignition switch itself. These switches were something that I found online. They're a replica of the aluminium switches in the Ford GT from the early 2000s, the sort of re-release, if you like, of the Ford GT40 that Ford produced. But experimenting with some 3D printing as well to produce some surrounds. They're going to be billet aluminium eventually. So a couple of surrounds there, and a larger one here for the banks of 3 switches. So gauge-wise, we have a full suite of completely custom gauges from Speedhut in America. Really cool company. You can have a multitude of different fonts, colors, lighting options, bezel options. You can have your own logos. In this case, we've gone for Jed Wolf Design, which is the owner's design house brand. So we've got his logo on the tachometer and the speedometer. So to complement the Jaguar opalescent gunmetal grey on the exterior, we have this rather lovely oxblood red leather on the inside. All of the trim on this car is being taken care of by 20th Century Motor Cars. Most of the trim is done for this car. It just needs fitting. So that will be done once it's been dynoed and set up and road tested. The car will then go to Jim, and the final thing that will happen with this vehicle is that he will do the rest of the interior. Headlining's already in. It's black Alcantara, or a very similar Alcantara-like product, with these nice original style stitches. A lot of diamond stitch in here as well on the seat backs, etc. It's very cool. As always, thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this introduction to the Jensen project. The next video on this car is probably going to be it being mapped on the dyno at Simpson Motorsport, so look out for that in the future. If you've enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe for more. Jensen. It's so stupid.